So your name is you're John Neff, and
Yep.
you're going to tell me your story on why you got interested in concrete coatings. It sounds like.
Okay. Yes. Well, originally I got into this. I was at a friend's house, and he was selling his house to this gentleman, and the gentleman and he was in the concrete sealant business. He had started doing it a few years earlier, and of course, this friend of mine wasn't really interested. He was playing with his kids and all, but I go, that's very interesting stuff. So I said, can I use that on a house I have up in Wilmington, Delaware on some plaster? He's like, oh, sure. It'll seal it. So
All right, so they were already interested in it on a project
I was already interested in another project. Yes. But
before you had any. And so, what were you doing? Were you a contractor?
I've done contracting forever. I worked mainly seasonal as much as possible here, and then I would go away. So, because it gets better.
Okay, so you're in Delaware.
I'm in Delaware. I played with that sealer that one fall, working on the house up there, but actually it was my parents' house. And then I went back to Central America, and I actually took some of the sealant down there to play around with some people that I knew and we ended up getting that going. But I came back, and the story behind the mold issue was that, yes, I pulled the carpet up, and we had black mold on the back. Of course, we were laughing back then, late 90s. Nobody thought much about it.
And it was carpeting over a pad and then something else?
Yep. It was right. Actually, it was carpeting right, over a pad over linoleum on a concrete slab. So
and you picked it up and you could see mold.
it was black. When we got it out of the house, we were like, no wonder it smells down there. It was so bad. And I had friends who had stayed here. They were between here and Key West. So in the summer they were up here working, and in the winter they'd be in Key West. And my friend, he got ill too. So the two of us got ill.
You got ill from picking up the carpeting?
Well, from picking up the carpeting, but we were breathing this in over time, and we just had we're susceptible to it. So we got a hold of, and now I've forgotten his name. There's a doctor in Pocomoke, Maryland, down on the Eastern Shore, who came up with how to get rid of listeria and the fish and all that. And
so what were your symptoms that you noticed?
Runny nose, fog, brain fog, just different kinds of stuff.
But you knew that you were different than you were the day before you picked up that carpet.
Well, just in the overall scheme of things, we knew from over the year, just thinking back in the years, this can't be good. I mean, I don't know exactly when we got a hold of him, but we looked into it and found this doctor that was, and since then I had Lyme disease too. So I've had to go to an integrated doctor for that, to get blood transfusions, all that sort of stuff. So we have a lot of ticks around here, and I didn't catch it in time. So I've had those couple things too that your husband's also had.
Yeah, we were talking about that. My husband, since on this recording, and I wasn't recording my story, but my husband, my short story is that before I started doing this, because my husband was sick and had Lyme disease, and then other people were talking about mold. And so that's kind of where I started helping people, and they just kept coming, and here I am thousands of people later, still talking about it and realizing it's a big deal. So I reached out to John here because I saw him talking about concrete coatings and wondered, it's interesting that you have a story. So have you found that the concrete coating is something that is useful to prevent that?
Well, there's a lot to this story, because we went from concrete coatings to actually making products for sheathing on the outside of homes in place of house wraps, to and I still have some, we have mold prohibitors for wood that when we're tested, it scored perfect 10s on. So we got into all these different things. It was a group, and it was a small company and all, but with the politics and all, and the ICC, and the codes, we just kind of pushed that aside, and I just kept with the clear product, which I've reformulated down in Central America. And
And that's for concrete?
This is for concrete. Yeah, this was the easiest product to work with. Concrete inherently, is porous, and it just depends how, what the PSI is, relative to the porosity of concrete. Concrete will not support mold growth unless there's some kind of carbon in there, but it will support other biological growth, which is generally algae that you see.
Well, and dirt and dust is a food source. So, I mean, I've seen plenty of Stachybotrys. Like under your carpeting might have been Stachybotrys.
Oh, it was black mold. It was Stachybotrys. I know that.
Yeah.
That's like a bad word for me.
So I'm always cautious about people saying, yeah, it doesn't support mold growth. Well, nothing does, wood would in theory, but it'll grow. It grows on dirt and dust, which is everywhere. So, there's an illusion that there's materials that are immune, and then people don't have to worry about it. And I spent a lot of my time.
Well, I actually worked with one of probably the best industrial hygienist in Delaware, Susan White. So I'm pretty up on a lot of it. I mean, you'll get mold growth on LBL beams in basements because dust will, believe it or not, be electrically charged to stick on the wood.
Right.
And I've gone into houses and shown people, look, see these little spots. Unfortunately, they're yellow just like the wood, so you can't see them unless you get real close. But that's why I smell mold, because there's enough moisture in your basement, to support the carbon was what it needs. It needs carbon, to grow. So whatever these little dots are, they've got some kind of carbon in them, and that's why we always said to seal concrete, because concrete is a big problem. Walls, floors. People tell me my concrete's dry. Well, it's not. I ask them, are you running a dehumidifier? Yeah. How's it run? It runs all the time. Well, guess what? You're pulling water or moisture through the walls, up from the floor. I don't care if you put poly down or not. The footer system, if the footers are in moisture or water, that's coming up through the wall system. So that's why I always say seal concrete in its entirety. Seal it from the top of the footer before you set your wall, and spray down that after you're done all the way up, the whole wall inside and out, basement, crawl space, and then do your slab. And you will find that it will be dry down there. And in many cases where we do crawl spaces, you really should have a neutral or fresh smell if it's done correctly. You'll still need a dehumidifier because moisture can get in anywhere. It's just going to get in. If you had a little hole somewhere, it's going to come in. But it's going to come up through that slab somehow. It's going to come up through contact with the walls, and it's going to come up through the footer. And every time you run an air system, a dehumidifier, you're just pulling the moisture through the wall and pulling the moisture through the wall. The water's not the problem. Water's fine when it's in a liquid state. It's when it turns into moisture.
Well, vapor. Yeah, moisture vapor.
Correct. Well, it's like gas is off, you could say, so to speak, as it's drying out. In other words, a wall, I could seal a wall, and if water's running down it to the perimeter drain, I don't care. But if it's not sealed, the water will expand along that wall, and now you have a moisture problem. And that elevates the overall humidity level in that confined area, as opposed to water, which is just water. But water under crawl space, I don't worry about it. But then again, once that water starts to vaporize into the air and build up the humidity levels above 60, 65%, that's when you're going to start seeing problems.
It's a vapor impermeable coating.
No, this is not.
It's vapor. It has a perm rating?
It has a perm rating. You do want moisture released, but it releases it at a very low rate.
Okay. So, and I'm just curious, can you tell me, I think I know why, but for anybody that might watch this, or I just am curious, why do you need vapor release? And it shouldn't be a complete vapor barrier.
Because concrete needs to breathe. Mm-hmm. It has to breathe.
Yeah, it'll degrade.
Right, exactly. Well, yeah, and it'll degrade. What you can do is, the beauty of this product is you can put it on damp concrete because it's an aqueous solution. It's water-based. So it actually helps with the curing of concrete.
Does it work on concrete block too?
If it's concrete block, yes. Any cementitious-based substrate.
Okay, so that means the grout joint, the joints, and the concrete block itself.
I've done grout joints. on glass block areas, and I've done it on tile floors. How do you do that? You have to be very careful because this will react on the glass. It will gel and onto it if you're not careful. How we always did
You
that.
say it will gel. What is it turning? What happens? Is it ruining the glass?
It's actually fusing to the glass. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be good.
Well, you can wipe it off. You can get it off pretty quick. It's not it's not going to happen like that.
Is it toxic for you to breathe? Do you have to take a lot of precautions to work with it?
Yeah, not very toxic. It has one ingredient in there that gases off pretty quick. Yeah. I mean, I'd wear a mask. I'd wear a mask if I was spraying anything, though, atomizing it.
Yeah.
If I was doing a floor, if I was doing a tile floor, like say if I'm doing the grout or something, I would use a hamster water bottle.
So on a floor on a concrete slab, a tile floor on a concrete slab, and I'm thinking it's ceramic or porcelain, not like a vinyl floor.
No, if I was doing the grout.
You're doing the grout on a ceramic or porcelain tile floor on a slab, or on, then you would, that's something you could use to seal the grout.
Exactly. If you're going to put down a tile floor, you spray this on first, because it has no intercoat adhesions with any kind of coating, paint, caulk, or concrete.
When you say so if a floor had been sealed or painted with something else, is that a problem? Does it have to be new concrete?
It has to be either new concrete or it has to be a flat paint for it to go through.
And how do you know if it's a flat paint? Now, I'm asking this question for me, actually, because I bought a house and I do a lot of experiments on the stuff that on my own house.
Right.
And so we bought a house that we're not living in yet, that has an unfinished basement, and we're trying to finish it.
Okay.
And the guy before us, 2 years old, the guy before us painted the floor.
Ooh. Okay.
So I can have it ground off.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the best bet. The other thing is he did the same thing in the garage, and we drove a car in there one time and all the paint's peeling off where the tires sat.
Right.
So that tells me two things. It either was dirty and a really bad coating job, or there's moisture under the concrete, which is likely as well. And that's pushing the paint off, and it just needed a little bit of a heavy tire on it to create that spot.
It can be that, or it can be the heat from the tires.
Oh,
yes.
I didn't think of that. That's a good one.
Right.
Did not think of that. Probably was heat of the tire on top of. So now, just so you know, I'm in Wyoming. So
right.
Very different climate in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Very dry here. They do not use vapor barriers under any of the new construction homes under the slabs that I've seen, which is right. Unfortunate for them. They should be doing them, in my opinion. But because there's plenty of mold here. They don't think there is, but there is. A lot of people don't think there is. But so now I'm trying to figure out what kind of flooring to put down on this basement floor, because even if I take off the paint layer, what I'm reading in my research is that the vapor drive that would come up from the ground and comes up everywhere, including in the desert, it starts to build up under the slab. And that initially it's not that great because it's a 2-year-old house. It probably won't be that great. But in 5-10 years, it's going to be more than it is right now, because it's going to start collecting.
Right.
All that moisture that is trying to evaporate, and evaporates really fast when it's not under a house. And so, how your product, is it a finished product that you can walk on?
Yes.
And you won't wear it off?
No.
What's the longevity of it in terms of?
We don't know.
You don't know because it's new. Yeah. So how does it look? Does it look like it's a seal? Does it look nice for somebody to have that be their finished floor? It
looks the same. It might be a shade darker. You wouldn't even notice it unless you poured water on it, and the water would repel. What this is it's not a coating per se. It's an aqueous solution, so it has the viscosity of almost water. Okay, And when you apply it, it penetrates into the pores of the concrete, okay? Which starts a chemical reaction. The first chemical reaction is the outside with carbon dioxide. That starts the second reaction, which is this product reacts with the free lime in any cementitious substrate, creating a resin within the pores of the concrete, in effect cross-linking with the lime and changing the internal composition of the concrete and strengthening it.
I was going to say, if you're going to change it, we hope it's on the strengthening side as opposed to it's going to crumble in 5 years.
Correct. Well, we've had it on buildings for 40 years along the ocean here in Ocean City, Maryland. They're still fine, the ones that were done.
You've been doing this for 40 years?
The people I was working with have been.
Okay. So you didn't invent this, someone else did.
Not even these guys. It was actually an old Italian chemist that worked for Hercules. And one of the gentlemen told him what he wanted, and the chemist, the story goes, the chemist came up with it, and he says, now I need it to surface cure in a couple hours because I don't want to spray it and then it rains and washes it off. And the chemist thought that was a little crazy, but no, he figured it out over time. So those two gentlemen were the people, the one of them that I met were the people that really got it going. The one of them who I worked under directly, who was from here, actually worked for Simon's Corporation in Chicago. And Simon's Corporation, the gentleman he worked under was, there were two guys, but one of them was Kirk Gregory. And Kirk Gregory always said concrete should be sealed. But the problem is it has to breathe. Simon's Corporation came up with the cure and seal for concrete. So that's a short-term product, though, that they would put on after they poured concrete.
Wait, what makes it a short-term product?
It didn't last. It was probably more wax or something, and it was
washed off, or the water in the concrete would kind of.
It wore off or washed off. It was really to help the concrete cure slower instead of having to keep it wet all the time. Mm-hmm. But he always said, if it could be done. And then this gentleman, Ron, say his name's Ron, he was one of the two founding members that got this product going. I took it to Central America. I've been down in Central America since the early 90s with it. And
really, what's going on in Central America that they need to seal concrete? Is like the whole building is concrete?
Well, in Costa Rica, it's not too bad down there, but in Panama City, Panama, you want to talk about growth. They literally 3 times a year have to clean the Jersey barriers on the roadways because of the growth down there. Because it rains.
Mold is just growing on concrete.
Grows like crazy because it never gets below 73 degrees there, and it never stops raining except around January. So this concrete, it just grows on there. Then, of course, you have the sulfur from the diesel fumes, that eats into it. So these buildings down there, these high rises they've been building, are turning into a real mess. And
so you're doing the outside of the building?
Oh, we're on the outside, yeah. We're on the outside trying to stop it from coming in.
Oh, I know of a project you could try to reach out to. But it's here in the United States, in Texas, that I took pictures of where it's actually on a university campus. And I took, because it's like it's so discolored and black under these windowsills. And it's not that old of a building, but it's very, I think it's really looks bad. It really looks bad. And I've often wondered, what do you do? Because you can clean it off. I know you can clean it off, but
it'll come back. Well, that's why this product won't support any mold growth at all or any kind of biological growth. You would have to have it sitting, say, in a regular surface of a stucco building where water can sit on top, and you might have a little surface growth at that point right there. But because this product is from the surface inwards, there's nothing can root to it.
So the building can still get dirty.
Oh,
which
it could still get dirty, but
they
it's not going to get into the porosity. It's going to
can't get into it.
yeah,
So
hose to take it off.
yeah, okay. So in mold growth world, we're talking about that it can't, there's not places for the dirt to be embedded because you've somehow sealed them.
Right.
And to really take root so that you could in a less than a power. So can you just hose it off without using power washing?
That's it. Yeah. In a lot of places like down Central America, it rains so hard the rain will wash it off.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So I like that because I have a lot of problems with people power washing their buildings that are not, you know, and then they end up pushing water into gaps and pushing out caulk and then they end up with all kinds of mold problems that they might not have already had just from power washing. So I try to avoid that suggestion for anything. So you can't power wash this stuff off.
No, I tried like 3,000 PSI. It's impregnated in there.
And it looks pretty much the same. How does it get applied? Is it a spray on or roll on or brush on?
We generally spray it on, but let's say if we get into areas like bridge work that I'm doing with the state of Delaware, it's a one-time application because it's reactive. And so you have to make sure that you get it all done correctly the first time. You only get one shot.
Okay, so can you do something wrong? What can you do wrong? Paint dirt?
Well, what you can do wrong is if you get overspray. You're not getting it on there. You're in direct sunlight. So let's say on a Jersey barrier, unless you have people on both sides spraying, okay, the best thing to do would be to roll the top first. And then
can you just clarify what a Jersey barrier is? I'm not familiar with that term.
On the side of the road or the center barriers.
Those concrete pylon things that are rectangular and flared at the bottom on the highway. That actually has a name. It's called a Jersey barrier.
Yes, it is.
Good to know.
Yeah. So you have to be careful how you do that. Otherwise, you won't get the depth of penetration like you want everywhere. If you get little spots, and you're coming back to that section, it'll get in behind there on your next spray probably, but you don't know if you've gotten it as good as you'd like to have. You want it to get to penetrate as best as you can, as deep as you can.
So if it's windy, do you have a problem with it like blowing around?
That would be, you should take good care with wind, yes. Because wind
Wyoming may not be a place to use that.
Well, it depends. If you do the right tip and it's a low pressure spray, yes. You can try and roll it on, but again, the viscosity of water, it's going to be a little bit of an issue.
Okay, so it seems a lot more efficient.
That's the drawback on walls and certain things. Every job's different. Floors, slabs, a foundation wall maybe, or inside basement wall, that's a no-brainer. Nobody can mess that up. Well,
so on the outside of a building, like say this building that I'm thinking of on this college campus in Texas, they would have to basically tape off all the windows because they're
cover the windows, right?
But it would be a one-time thing, one and done, that they'd never have the problem again.
Correct. It'll get into all those little cracks and fissures and seal everything off. I like to tell people if you're going to do a crack repair and you have it doesn't go all the way through, or even if it did go all the way through, you spray inside that crack and it hits all those surface areas, and it's kind of like a flashing, and then you do your repair and fill it. And if you use concrete, then you spray that again to seal that patch area itself.
There's a guy that actually I would be interesting. He might be interested in this. That is another person that's in the trades that also is an inventor. And he does, I used to be in Chicago, based out of Chicago, and they have all these concrete block walls that they build like 3 flats with, and where it's like the concrete block is exposed, but they end up with so much water in them. And then he has all these inventions for basically how to dry them out and how to get the water out. And then what he has seen and talks about on his website on his work is that then the roof framing, so it's wood trusses and stuff, end up all rotting out because the water is wicking up in the concrete block, and
Sure.
there's the stack effect raising the water vapor.
Right.
And then it gets trapped by the flashing at the top of a parapet wall, and then
Right.
just crashes the ends of whatever structure is holding up the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's got to tent these things and everything. And so I'm wondering, I'm just thinking out loud here, if if what you have could be a benefit for that kind of a problem from stopping the moisture from the outside in that
Yeah.
material.
Any kind of stucco buildings.
So what do you do with stucco? Oh, do you do the stucco like in Florida where it's stucco over block?
Yeah. That's
Oh.
an easy one there.
I'm interested in that too, because so I have clients all over the world, but definitely all over the United States and a lot in the southern states.
Okay.
The Carolinas, Florida, Texas, even Arizona. I have quite a few. I have them everywhere, but there's a predominance of those areas that are really struggling. And part of it is in Florida, what I'm finding is that their building codes allow you to put stucco, adhere it to the concrete block. They have these notes about that the water can't go through it, but they aren't actually doing anything about that. And so we end up with mold on the back of the drywall because in fact, the moisture does go through it. And then, and so my research suggests that the reason isn't because you're necessarily running a dehumidifier, that water always wants to dry to the drier side.
That's
and
correct.
So if you're air conditioning inside and you get your air conditioning down to 50 where it should be, 55 at the most, and it's 95 humidity outside, 95% humidity outside, then and rain, or 100% it's raining, that moisture says, I don't want to go out there. There's no draw for me to go out there. I need to go, whoa, it's dry in here. Let's go there. And then the drywall, the paper, recycled paper is blocking its way. And of course, the drywall doesn't like that. So I have lots of clients that are trying to convince their builders to do a rain screen of some sort. But I wonder if this is a good solution for all those houses that are already built. And I have one in particular that I'm thinking of in Miami, a client that, he's contemplating taking all the stucco off. And I wonder if this is a solution that he could leave it on.
Yeah, I could spray my stuff on drywall too.
No, well, we don't want to do that because the substrate doesn't like being wet. So you're not going to do anything about the backside of the drywall.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, there's a gentleman in Orlando, Florida, who we're following each other, Mr. Cordell on LinkedIn. And he's a forensic, he was in the construction business, but he's a pretty big forensic investigator. And he actually posted something recently that I've reposted, I think, and sent to a few people. And he shows there where the vapor pressure, because all these people say the building will dry outwards. And he says, not in Florida. The vapor pressure.
Nowhere.
Well, it will in Delaware when it's, the winds are northwest in the wintertime.
Okay, but
Florida.
Not in the summer in Delaware. So that means it had to completely dry out. I mean, they have the same thing kind of going on in like Minnesota, North Dakota, Upper Michigan, and all those. But I would argue that in those climates, they still have warm summers, and that it needs to go both ways. Yeah. And that a lot of times these buildings have such a draw at one time, or we get water in our walls from other things,
Well, you get your rain, you got your,
it could be from the shower. People are always like, where should I live avoid mold? I say, well, anywhere where you don't have a bathroom would be a good start. And so good luck with that. We all want to have indoor plumbing. And
one of my partners and his sister has a place in Costa Rica, and the house there is on the Caribbean side, and we seal the concrete and it's dry, but the metal's rusting because it's right on the beach. And then you have the wood you have to keep coating in and all, but of course, see the bathrooms there, it's all pretty much open air. That's what you need.
Right. They have those outdoor showers and everything.
Outdoor showers. Oh yeah. Don't worry about water down there. But exactly what Mr. Cordell said was the vapor pressure will not allow the walls to dry outwards, contrary to what everybody says. And then again, that goes back to what I've been saying: seal the concrete and be done with it.
Yeah, no,
the outside, above. You seal the top of the footer, the wall system, including the top of the wall, and you're done. That's all there is.
Well, that's really interesting about the footer. I hadn't thought about that because that is what we're seeing in crawl spaces in particular, and in basements, and they don't have those in Florida, but that there's that vapor drive in the ground, and people will say, oh, there's no moisture in the ground in Arizona. And there's actually a guy that did a test on this because they wanted to bury metal toxins in metal barrels in Arizona. So they researched it and they did all the calculations, and they figured out that even in the desert of Arizona, that those metal drums full of toxins would rust out because of the moisture in the ground, and that everywhere that there's any plants ever, which is everywhere on this planet, that it's basically 95 to 100% relative humidity below the ground. Now the top surface might be drying fast. So you might say, oh, it's really dry up here. But if you dig down, it's going to be damp down there.
A lot of people don't understand that the earth aspirates upwards.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Exactly.
We got into crawl spaces in 95, and Ron, his house, he had actually snakes up in the, when he pulled the insulation out, he had snakes up there. And how we
in the insulation?
Yeah, in the insulation they were living. It was 98% black snakes, a family.
Snakes?
Yeah.
SNAKES, like in the Wrigley things?
Right. Yeah. Snakes.
Had them living in his crawl space insulation?
Oh, I find them all the time. We find them all the time here. Yeah.
Oh, this is disgusting. What kind of insulation? And not just bat insulation?
Bat insulation, yeah. Yep.
Oh, that's so gross.
So at the time, nobody had done anything. And that was the first one. We did the walls inside, blocked the vents off with some styrofoam, threw a cheap dehumidifier in there over poly that was laying on the floor, and he got it down to 50% humidity. We went from that. I started doing waterproofing the foundations with some coatings we had, and I got into doing crawl spaces with basement systems out of Connecticut. I was the dealer here. I brought in drainage systems from Atlanta, Georgia to use, which are better than the pipe and all. You've got basement systems here, but I always told basement systems the key is you have to seal the walls and keep them dry.
Well, and there's one other step, and that's getting your site to drain away.
Well, the first thing you do, that's where I took J-drain perimeter drainage system and put that around the footer or the base of the wall, depending on the height of the dirt. That's a no-brainer, because if you do that correctly, the capillary action will take the moisture to the J-drain, and eventually the ground will be as hard as concrete.
Yeah, but you could start with just sloping the ground away from the foundation to begin. That's actually code, and nobody does, and it's so not done properly.
6 inches the first 10 feet.
Exactly, and then it's disturbed soil. It ends up sinking, and it should be more than that to accommodate the settling. But even new construction, I don't see people doing it. And then they do it with the rough grade, and then the landscapers come in and they put plants around the house, and then now we have a channel of low area right next to the foundation, and then people are wondering why their foundation is cracking. So that's the other thing. We don't want, we can have differential movement if we have settlement, if we have water that's not consistently saturating the ground around the foundation. It's called differential wetting. So there's a lot of reasons to get the water away, but I'm a belt and suspenders person. So I'm always like, okay, and what else can we do? And what else can we do? And so I do recommend in new construction doing the drains, and then also the sealing of the I'm interested in the sealing because I like the fact that it actually breathes, because I've been concerned about that, especially with block, that if we trap the moisture in there, because I have seen block turn to dust.
Yeah.
Where the whole foundation is now, because it's been wet for all this time and we didn't let it breathe, that it's actually just crumbling.
Correct. Well, there's two things about that too. You don't want all the moisture out. So some does stay in there because concrete does need a little bit of moisture, believe it or not. It does have to have some moisture in there, or it gets too dry that way too and crumbles. You're talking about wet crumbling and dry crumbling.
Yeah. Well, since we have moisture in the ground, there's always some moisture. And I always tell people, I think 80% maybe relative humidity is probably the best you're going to get on concrete, or not in the concrete itself. Because to your point, yeah, that it's always, plus if it's against the ground. So we have to balance cost versus an ease of doing this stuff. And so I am intrigued by this product. So
well, you can literally, the beauty of this is you can spray the entire top, spray the footer, you put your wall up, you put your parge coat on, and now you can do the whole wall. You don't have to stop at the grade line because of tar. You can do the whole wall. A lot of times the water actually can get in, moisture or water can get in above the grade line, or you can get a crack up there, you know.
So that's on the outside. So then do they need additional waterproofing? Or is that a substitute for damp proofing or other waterproofing methods?
It would be considered under ICC code as a damp proofing product because it doesn't have the ability to stretch over cracks, non-structural cracks.
Okay.
But in the reverse, it goes into cracks. Or if it's already on there, the wall shouldn't be cracking.
Well, the wall shouldn't be cracking. But that's because of poor drainage usually, poor prep, site prep. So there's a foundation problem with the soil.
Well, there's two different kinds. There's a problem with, you have your block walls with parge coating over it, and then you have poured walls. The reason ICC really started pushing waterproofing back in 2000 or in the 90s actually, was because poured walls would crack. They just do. Nobody ever does them right. They don't brace them. They backfill them too quick. They don't keep them. Yeah,
the concrete shrinks, and depending on how big it is,
exactly.
There's some cracking that's inevitable. I agree with that.
Yeah, they don't put rebar by the windows, at angles. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons. Yeah. So we can do the walls like that. Would I put something over it? Probably, for at least if you follow ICC code, I'd put something over top that's clear on poured walls for sure. On parged walls, since that is just lime rich mortar mix, this stuff goes off like a firecracker, so we don't
really?
That. Yeah, that goes off on lime, it goes on keystone, on anything with cementitious substrate, it goes off on. The more lime the better. If we did a couple places in Costa Rica, we did Dos Pinos and one of in Imperial, I think both the milk company and the beer bottlers. And the problem was, the acids and all had eaten the concrete. And in that case, we had to be cleaned, and we had to put a lime slurry to re-energize the concrete so that we could then get the reaction we wanted.
Oh, wow. So is this mostly a commercial product?
Not really per se.
Like, can homeowners get this?
That's always been the problem, is because it's reactive. You want to be careful giving it to anybody.
So it has to have a professional install it.
I would prefer that, so you're not fielding calls all day. Joe Sixpack started spraying. He got a phone call and stopped, and then he wants to know why. You know what I mean? Or he started spraying his pavers, and then he goes, "Oh, where did I stop?" And he starts spraying again. And,
it's like anything. It can be the best product, and if the installation is flawed, then it doesn't matter if it was the best.
Correct, because it's not a coating; it's a reactive chemical. So if it was a crawl space wall inside, anybody could do that. If it was a basement wall, anybody should be able to do that. The floor, you got to keep it going. The outside of a foundation, crawl space, yeah, not a problem. Footer, top of a footer. Well, if you can't spray that, we got a problem.
Right, that would seem like there's no. I mean, so what? You get the dirt a little wet with it, right? It doesn't matter.
Well, you want to make sure the dirt's off the footer.
Right. But in terms of any overspray, if you're
it's not going to do anything. It's not going to do anything. It'll just disappear. you know?
So for my clients who are primary, I mean, I do have a lot of people who do commercial work. I have people who are like home
Yeah.
builders that follow me. Um, Definitely there's a big issue in schools
Oh, yeah.
and a lot of office buildings and stuff. But I find that the people who are following me, we're kind of a ground up organization where the people who actually care are the ones who've been sick.
Right.
And so I think architects would like to know about this.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, me being one, I can tell you that it's very intriguing to me. We're always looking for solutions. And so I'm intrigued by that, but I'm wondering for the people that, so we say you're all over, is this company, so do you work for a company that is that supplies this product and installs it?
I own the company. Yes.
You are the company, you own the company.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay,
But
so
I have people
what's the company name?
Total Moisture Control.
Okay, and you're out of Delaware?
I'm out of Delaware. We're in Panama, the Bahamas, Colombia, Costa Rica.
We've had a couple clients in Costa Rica.
I'll be there in a couple weeks.
So Total Moisture Control, but are you the only guy? Like,
no,
so say if I wanted to do it in Wyoming, can I do it in Wyoming, or it's not on your service? You don't have anybody here.
I'll be happy to. I can work with anybody or set any competent waterproofer up to do it. Actually, in any areas that you have. We have Florida, South Florida. We have covered pretty good though. Miami.
Okay, yeah. So on my Florida and Carolina clients, how about Texas?
Carolina, Texas, no. Although it's no problem getting it. I just want to make sure
getting it installed. So it sounds like the installation's a little tricky.
It can be. Doing a floor, doing a wall, fine. You start messing with split face block, you have to have a plan of how to do it right.
Okay, so like the people I know in Chicago that are doing the split face block. I may be able to connect you up with this guy and you can have a conversation. But he's a contractor also. So an inventor, and he has his own inventions that he's come up with to kind of let the air out and do all this kind of stuff, which is also really helpful in these situations. So I'm just thinking of how I could share your information and have it be beneficial for you and for the people that follow me, and how if somebody wanted to try this product or use it or price it at, like what's the price point are we talking about? Since you do, that's another thing with commercial. When stuff's for commercial, it's a whole different price point than what somebody can do in their basement or crawl space of a single family home.
Yeah, material runs about 35 a gallon, comes in 55-gallon drums, and 275-gallon totes. So, depending on your square footage, if you're getting 100, 150, usually about on parging type material, even block, a good block, you'll get about 150 square foot a gallon.
So it's more going to probably be getting somebody to do it. The labor is always.
Yeah. It's it's actually, it can be a very profitable business.
I'm just thinking, I know somebody that's trying to start up a business, and he's a painter, but I wonder if he should be going into a little concrete ceiling. I was just actually at a house looking at a house to buy. We're still looking for houses to buy, and Laramie, Wyoming. And I had kind of an inkling this house was older, architect built, and I thought, oh, that's really interesting. I want to go see it. Well, then I heard the story that the occupants are sick and with Alzheimer's, which is known to be connected to mold, from my personal experience and from research that I've seen. And then they mentioned that person's father was also had Alzheimer's, and I'm thinking, oh my God. And then I go down there, and it's that situation that you talked about that you picked up, which was linoleum tile with carpet over it in a lower level basement with a high water table and known leaks coming through
Well,
window
my
levels.
house is actually a slab on grade. And I mean, in the summertime, if I leave the doors open and the humidity builds up, it can turn into an ice skating rink in there because
Oh, with some
it's so
condensation.
hot. The ground is still so cold. It's actually an elevated slab. I'm outside right now in the carport area, which is even lower. But the cold, when that humid air hits, it's unbelievable sometimes. So I have to shut the house and run the AC just to dry it out.
Yeah, yeah. So that's not, they don't have humidity here in Cheyenne, most of Wyoming. That is
No?
a big deal. So they get a buy on this, but that house, I was having a reaction just walking around in it for 10 minutes.
So it's
So,
coming upwards.
yeah, I think
Aspirate.
it's really, but that's to your point of, that rising of the moisture coming in, and it certainly wasn't sealed.
Through the wall.
It
Yeah.
was a 50s house. And, okay, well, this is very interesting. Do you have a website?
It's under total moisture control.
There has to be the, how would somebody, get your services? Like the client I have in Florida that I know of, that we're thinking of taking all the stucco off the block, for instance. If this is an alternative to not doing that, how does he go through me to get to you? Or do you want him to call, like how would somebody get access to this kind of product?
That sounds like you have a lot of people. I would leave that
I
up to
do
you.
have a lot of people. So, and I know other people have been like, whoa, I get all these people calling me. And
Right.
they're,
Let's put it this way. Yeah. The East Coast, I definitely don't have a problem with. We'll have to find somebody on the West Coast. For the East Coast, for me to get it done, we're covered there.
We have that on the stucco on the West Coast too.
We're here. Out there would be a little difficult to get out there. I'll have to set somebody up. Like
how about
saying.
Miami? Did you say you have somebody set up in Miami?
Yes, we do. We work with the biggest real estate agents down there. And speaking of architects, we're working with Kobe Karp down there in Miami. But
if you're going to work with real estate agents, can you work with me and my clients?
Sure, that's not a problem. However you'd like to do it, that's fine. You want to come off to me down there?
Then at least I'll have pre-screened it and said this is a good application for your project, and it won't be so much of it can come through me. I just didn't know if you had. So I spoke at a remediation conference last month, and they have like branches all over. People I think they own their own companies, but they're somehow franchise related.
Yeah.
And so they do have 250 locations all over where you could have some of the same products that they invented used, and then they kind of all do their own things aside from that in terms of remediation to install. Because then that would be the other thing in Florida. So are you going to Florida to do this, or you have people in Florida? Because it's not the realtors that are putting it on.
No. We have people down there. Yeah, my business partners been working down there quite a bit, and from there that's how we're in the Bahamas and Colombia and all that sort of stuff. And then I've got other guys in Costa Rica and Panama. So East Coast is we've got it covered. I have a problem going from here to there.
And I do there's a lot of clients I have on the East Coast. They just aren't doing as much of that stucco on the wall thing. The basements are a disaster. All the older homes with basements that didn't have vapor barriers, which is actually homes up that they could have been built last year. So,
Well, the older block buildings, I find like a lot of them have water moisture issues, and you can't really dig outside. So you have to control it. And usually what we do is you drill holes at the bottom to get the water, and control that into a drainage system. And then you spray the walls to keep them dry. Because there's two problems here: water problem, moisture problem. The water becomes a moisture problem. Get that water out of the wall down at the base, and then seal it off to keep it dry.
Yeah, if you can't stop it on the surface, which is always my first choice. We do have a problem with some of those interior drains turning into kind of a moat that seems to be a breeding ground for mold.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm not sure how to fix that.
Is it a perimeter drain?
When they're putting an interior perimeter drain, like an interior drain around the perimeter of the foundation, A lot of people are really sick with those. And I suspect it's just that it's kind of an opening to the ground and the water is being promoted to go there. And I think that what's in there is getting into the air in the building just because it's the stack effect, and that it's really hard to actually seal that back up.
Is that, are you talking about cutting the floor and putting the drainage in after the fact?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You do that?
I've done them over the years. Yeah.
Yeah. I try, it's like, I really try not to have people do that because I'm concerned about it.
The way I always liked to do it was, there was a couple ways, because basement systems had a really nice dimpled drainage board that would work so it went under the footer. The way I like to do it is if you have a perimeter drain where the slab is touching the footer, okay, what you would do is you would have a channel at some point from the footer to the sump, okay, and you could put a pipe in there and then reconcrete over that. So all that's sealed off. The water's not going under the slab to the bottom. It's actually running
Is
to
the
the
pipe perforated? How does the water get in the pipe?
Okay, so imagine you have a footer right here. Let me see if I can do this. If you have a foot, here's the footer, here's the wall, okay? So if this piece of the footer here, the slab comes, this isn't working too good, sorry. If you leave a gap between the wall and the slab here, okay, like a gap, so that the water would stay in that channel and go around towards the sump, what you would do is we would put a piece of pipe, we would cut a drain if you wanted it closed, and you put a piece of pipe there that went from the footer, went on top of the footer to that perimeter drain into the sump container. Then you would cover the top, and then what we do is you spray the sealer in there, and what that does is it keeps that water in a liquid form, and generally it should run towards the sump system if it gets heavy.
And this is in remodel situations?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In remodel situations, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna say that I'm still concerned about it.
Oh, it's no, I get it.
It's there's just the dirt itself is. I can't see what you were doing anyway. So, but I am definitely intrigued by the concrete ceiling thing and the fact that it is still breathable. That was really key for me. So there's nothing to peel off, and the moisture can still get out. Moisture vapor is as you pointed out, is a completely different molecule. Everybody out there, it's a different size. It can go through things by diffusion in a different way than regular moisture moves. And it's not, I mean, generally I would say it's not that big of a problem, diffusion on the big scheme of things, but I think in basements and concrete lower levels and concrete slabs over the ground, that it's definitely not something we can ignore.
Right.
And,
and water molecules are small. They're one of the smallest molecules on the planet.
Yeah.
They're that small. So people go, how can it be leaking? I can't even see the crack. Because it doesn't take much at all. Water has a cohesion to itself. It pulls itself through.
I'm thinking that builders could take advantage of this, but first we have to convince them that there's mold under their carpeting and pad that they're putting down, or under their LVP that they're putting down, this laminate vinyl plank, or even engineered wood. They put down a plastic vapor barrier first, and that gets mold under it.
Right.
So
mold growing, that'll grow in plastic.
Oh yeah. No, as I said, dirt and dust is everywhere. It's like going jogging in a garbage bag. You would feel kind of not good.
Yeah.
It's swampy in there, and it's not going to lead to anything good. Bacteria and mold.
Right.
We'll love that environment, and so that is what I'm doing. Is still on the education side, saying actually, I should connect. I know someone to connect you to, in New Jersey.
Okay.
A building inspector.
Okay.
Who has gotten sick herself. And so, so I'm going to connect you to her because she's working with all these buildings that are like low income housing and stuff, and the landlords, and trying to get a landlord to do the right thing. is really a challenge. And maybe there's some synergy there. If nothing else, then to tell the story of, yes, this is an issue.
Right. No, exactly. Yeah.
And then,
You've got
from
really good.
there, once you can convince people that this is an issue, it is a health issue, then the result, the solutions will come from that. But right now, I think a big hurdle is just getting to the point of getting the people, especially in bigger buildings, developers, the government agencies, et cetera, on board with this is a health concern and it's not going away.
It is. It is a health concern. Yeah, we always sold that on the crawl space business that, you're breathing the out, you're breathing even worse than the outside air.
Yeah, and whatever's in the crawl space is coming in the rest of the house. I don't care how much you try to seal it.
Yeah.
Built out of little pieces by human beings, and there's holes all over the place. It's good luck with that. Nature's gonna find a way to do what it wants to do, whether that's and then the other thing people do, which is natural and they should be, is running an exhaust fan, running their kitchen exhaust, running a dryer on the first floor. Well, that creates negative pressure, and then of course nature wants an equilibrium, so it's going to suck that air out of wherever it's going to get it from. It could be the wall cavities under the window, the attic. It could be the crawl space. It could be that hole in the concrete slab under your whirlpool tub that nobody ever closed up.
Exactly. And and I even kind of disagreeing with this one gentleman. He said, well, we did this old house and it was this morning and we got the crawl space pretty dry and it's okay. We don't really need to do anything. And I said, I think you understand that your ductwork's going to sweat. And what happens over time is you won't know it, but the tape comes loose. And you're going to cause that air, that negative pressure you're talking about. It's going to pull it from somewhere, your doors loose, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And those systems aren't 100%. You can do duct pressurization testing, and I guarantee you there's nobody, even the best contractors, that coming back with completely pressurized. No, again, human beings. We all are human beings, and there's little bitty pieces, a lot of pieces, and bends and angles and tiny places to go through. It's so easy to miss something.
Yeah, where the filter goes in. I mean, any of that stuff. It's just the way it is. So, that air's going right upstairs. Yeah.
Well, it has been a pleasure talking to you. I'm
nice talking with you. Yes.
To look at your website and definitely to keep it in mind for the clients that I'm working with, that I can just think of several off the top of my head right now. I wouldn't mind trying it on my house. We'll see if that is something easy or not easy to do. It's always good for me to see how things are done, and that helps me to better know what we need to do to get it done right and what can go wrong.
Right.
Like I said, I'm always an experiment, and there definitely have been products that I bought that I would never use again. Because over 10, 15 years, I realized, like, okay, I'm never buying this product again. It had a great sales, model, and the warranties aren't all that good, and so. But you've been doing this personally for how long?
1991, 92.
With this product.
This with the original formulation, yeah.
So the project has had some changes along the way. Oh
yeah, it's always being modified. The technology's always changing. Yeah.
And you have the safety, the material safety data sheet.
Yes.
So because my people are all worried about air quality and off gassing. So
yeah,
I understand that products, and I try to share this, that there's some products that you want to use that are going to off gas for a short period of time, and that makes it a good product. What we don't want to have is this year over year over year, or even month and month and month, that it's still off gassing.
Yeah.
So
a couple hours, maybe, if that. Yeah. But you won't even, it'll smell more like dryness is what it'll smell like. Very little toxicity to it. I mean, you could actually declare it so low as 0 VOCs if you wanted to. So the toxicity is low. But now, once the reaction starts taking off, that's it. It's over.
Does this qualify? Can people put hardwood floors over this on a slab?
Sure. No,
Have
done a
you
few of them.
seen people
Ready to
do
do
it?
them right down the street. They knocked this house down. They're going to put a big old mansion up, and I just got a call that they want me to spray the concrete. The gentleman's from Washington D.C. and he's worried about moisture coming up because he's going to put down hardwood floors, I think, or something, and that'll stop him from cupping. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the warranty, a lot of these, they avoid the warranty if there's in some sort of vapor protection. But wood will dry, you know, it can take on a little bit of moisture and dry. And that is I think an advantage of wood, which would be different over, still would be, because some moisture is drying. I'm not sure what you think about putting down like a vinyl product.
You can put vinyl over.
You think
No
that
problem.
it's not going to end up being moldy in 15 years?
No.
Because the amount of moisture coming out is not enough?
Right, correct.
Because it's still not vapor proof. It's vapor retarding. Is that correct?
Well, yes, if you'd like to, go ahead and put a coating over top. Like I said, you can put any coating on it you want. So you
Yeah,
want to
the
put
question is there going to be mold under that coating in a few years?
Well, it had to be the coating. It couldn't be from our product because it doesn't.
No, it
support
won't be
mold.
from your product. If they have poor drainage, this is where it always comes back to. If this is being saturated, people are always looking for the easy button. And then they, you know, like, oh, good, I did this, so I don't have to worry about my site grading.
Right.
You know, or that downspout dumping water against the foundation year over year. I don't have to worry about that because I waterproofed my concrete.
Seal that too, right?
Yeah, so that's unfortunate because that is the conundrum we end up with, is that you still have to do all the other things. You don't get a buy on building your building properly, and vigilance and paying attention to all that. So, all right, well, this has been really interesting.
You can, I mean, one quick thing is you can act like out through basement systems. They have interlocking plastic tiles that can go down, which create a drainage plane underneath of them. And you can put tile over top, or they can come already redone or whatever. So that plastic, that's a total vapor seal with that. Yeah.
Yeah, but where does it go? Like the floor isn't sloped. So
that's
that gets back to my putting a hefty bag over it or garbage bag.
Right.
And that nature's going to figure out a way for air to get out of there, and that's not really able to dry. And so that's why I was thinking engineered wood maybe would be a solution, because it can take on a little moisture and dry.
Yeah.
It's not the same plastic kind of trapping, complete 100% class 1 vapor barrier.
Yeah, hardwood
and real
hardwood floors over wood. That's the first thing I notice in people's house. Like, you got a problem in your crawl space. Why? Because your hardwood floors are cutting.
Right.
You know, you got moisture coming up. Really? Yeah. So yeah, you do. And then you go in and the insulation's all stringy, and you know, it's not even working, functioning at that point.
Yeah, and the snakes are in the crawl. I'm never gonna not see that in my mind.
I think it's about 8 or 9 of them. He said, "Mom and all the babies," or something. Oh, he came running out of there. You know, they were on his neck, and he was just.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
We find snake skins all the time. We pulled a couple out. Actually, the last one was killed because it was a copperhead. They had to kill it. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
no, it's amazing what can happen in a swampy spot. So they have to have them not be swampy, and then you don't have swamp critters wanting to live there. So
contact information. So if you want to, with any of your clients, however you want to do something, that's fine.
Yeah, I think I'll start with when I have a client, as opposed to just saying, everybody go buy from this guy. Because I think then you will get inundated in a way that won't be productive. And then if it's through me, then I can screen it and make sure that the situation is one that, and then we can talk about it. And if you like, I don't want anybody else from South Dakota. Okay, we won't do South Dakota.
Well, if you haven't, you may have, like you said, you may have people like the painter or whoever that wants to start it. You want to start something out there. I don't have any problem with that. However you want to do it.
So it's just a matter, they just would buy your product, and then you're going to train them on how to use it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you want to do it.
I have enough to do. So
too, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of businesses I could start. So if anybody out there wants to know of some businesses to start, I actually have a lot of ideas for that too. I'm going to stay in my lane though right now.
We're working on something that could be so huge it wouldn't even be possible, which has drained a lot of my energy the last week now. So it's pretty amazing. If we get to that point, it's going to be interesting because it's going to change the way they build houses too, I think.
Well, I think there's a need for that, to be honest.
I'm a 3D printer guy. I like that stuff.
I'm not sure about that myself. I'm not sure about that part, but because I don't really understand it. But I am interested in prefabrication and modular components and whatever. We wouldn't be building a Tesla outside in a parking lot expecting it to be really efficient.
Right.
So as our homes and our buildings want to be really efficient, we have all these metrics we can measure as about air movement and all this stuff, then we start to have to create a machine, and that our buildings have to be kind of a machine. And we have to have a lot more control over how they're getting built and the environment they're getting built in and the potential things that can go wrong.
Yeah, different climate zones. We're working with a guy out of Costa Rica with post and panel housing for the Bahamas. You know, that we're trying to get into Florida too, which may be a way to go. Simple post and beam, very low cost housing that's efficient.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good solution. My background, I worked for 5 years for the wood industry through an organization called Woodworks. So it's a wood industry over doing commercial support for people doing commercial using wood structure. And there's things called cross laminated timber that is coming out, which is that panelized kind of stuff. And there's structural insulated panels. So all kinds of new stuff that I think there's places for sure. All right.
Well, I don't know if I want to even start talking about engineered woods and everything. My God, I'm still on the, OSB is it's bad news. God, that's some of the work.
OSB, it's just like everything. What kind of OSB? It's like saying, oh, all toilet paper is bad because you went to one bathroom that had toilet paper you could see through and, it was garbage, because you get what you pay for. And there's good of this, there's good, better, and best, and there's junky of everything. So the problem is people think, oh, I just need OSB. What have you got? Well, give me the cheapest one. Well, you go to get a suit and you say, I don't really care what kind of suit I'm getting. I just need it to be the cheapest one. You'd be lucky if it doesn't fall apart before you're done with your event. So, so that, I think every product has that, where we have to start, and that's a lot of what I talk about is looking for quality and being willing to pay for it and saying, I want that thing, but what's the best quality of that thing? Right. So,
you're right. You're right.
But I probably myself would go to plywood over OSB too.
I would take plywood. OSB, as soon as you put a hole in it, you got a problem.
Yeah, I didn't have it at my house, truth be told. So, but there is definitely different qualities. People are doing all the zip system and stuff, and that's a much higher grade OSB. But there's holes in it, so when we poke holes in it to attach it or run fiber it or whatever else, or we put the floor over wet crawl space, doesn't matter that we used this product that was really durable and water resistant because we didn't stop the leak or the moisture from below.
Right.
Yeah.
You're well informed.
Lots of research. I've been researching this for 18 years since one of my children got sick. And then, like I said, I only started thinking, well, maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. Because I really have background as a designer. And then I just started realizing it kept slapping me in the face, and I know things that could help people. So maybe I should use it. Maybe I should. And like I said, people keep coming. So I keep trying to figure out ways to help. And I think what you're doing is very interesting, and hopefully it's going to be helpful for some people that I may connect you with.
All right.
So,
Well, good. Well, thank you.
all right.